Tiny, is there any famous business person that inspires you?
There's lots of them. So what I do is I just tend to grab some information from them, something that I can use, something that they've done, something they've changed. Henry Ford, with his production line, what the challenge was, it was taking 30 days to build one car. So one person would spend 30 days. So he went to an abattoir and he actually watched the production line there. So it wasn't actually his idea. Everybody thought it's Henry Ford's idea. But what he did was he actually saw people just doing one job the same over and over again, and the carcasses would come through and one person would just do one job. So then he implemented that into the way he did the Ford motor vehicle. So it ended up bringing it from 30 days down to about a day. So then he could bring the price down of the vehicle even more, which meant he sold more, which meant the production line could do more. And then at one stage, I think he hired 5,000 people all at once, because he worked out that, hold on a sec, if I've got the factory there, running 8 hours a day, why can't I have the factory running 24 hours a day? Because it's the same factory. So in principle, what he did was he basically made it cheaper and cheaper. So I think originally the Ford motor vehicle was a bit over about $1,000. Back then it was a lot of money, and then he got it round to about $450. So imagine a vehicle nowadays, like a Tesla, going from, well, I think that's what he's trying to do as well, going from 100,000 down to 50,000. So he implemented that. Carnegie, the steel merchant, what he did was a very simple thing where he had two shifts, the day shift and the night shift, 12 hours, 12 hours. And they had to, let's say that department needed to do 3 200-ton worth of steel to be produced that night. So 3 loads, let's call them railway loads. So all he did was, in the morning, he actually just wrote, he said to the night crew, let's see how much you can get, how far you can get, how many. So in the morning, the day crew turned up, and all Carnegie did was, with a chalk, just put 4 on the floor. And so he ended up, the day crew, when they finished, they crossed it off and put 5. So the night crew came back and they went, so they did 6. It ended up being 8. So he doubled the production with really just putting a chalk on the floor. Okay, so it's knowing where to motivate people, knowing what systems. So a lot of these famous guys, I mean, Edison had 1,000 patents. I mean, yes, he made some of them himself, but the majority of them he either bought or got. But one of the famous ones was the light bulb, where he had 10,000 attempts. So it was one of those funny things that he sort of said when people said, well, you got it wrong 10,000 times. He goes, no. He said, I got it right once, and that's all I needed. And everybody thought in a sense, people think he failed. No, he just kept doing it until he got it. The way it is he ran out of ways of getting it wrong. So I use that same approach when I got a quote for putting gutters on my house, and people wanted $20,000 to put gutters on my house, and I thought, well, it can't be that hard. So there's 9 ways of putting gutters on a house wrong, and so I ran out of ways of getting it wrong, and I eventually got it right. So yeah, so some of the things you just use as a bit of fun. The thing with Henry Ford, another one that he did do was he had 50,000 staff, and he would pay people to count the steps of each staff member for the whole day. Now, if he saved 3 steps a day per staff member, that's 150,000 steps. Now, obviously, he saved thousands of steps per person by making things shorter and bits and pieces, and making them more efficient. So if you get 50,000 people and you save 1,000 steps, that's 50 million steps. So once again, it brings the product cheaper. So when you're in business, I use in a sense, the Henry Ford system of, okay, how can we make this faster? How can we do it more efficiently? In painting, it's a very simple one. A lot of painters, unfortunately, get this wrong. They have the bucket over there and the walls over there, and they keep walking backwards and forwards. When you're unloading a trolley, you unload the stuff here, and then the next bit you unload there, and you push the trolley along. So there's lots of very basic things that these guys introduced many years ago that people use now. But you've just got to have a bit of common sense, sort of say, okay, how can we make it more efficient? How can we do more? How can, like I will run 6 screens. That's my normal computer screen. So I can have, a bit of motivation happening here, bookwork here, some other stuff. And yes, it doesn't save a lot of time, okay? People say, oh no, well, you're still looking at, one screen at a time. That's correct. That is totally correct. However, if you've got one normal screen and you have to keep, moving, if you're doing bookwork and you're banking, if you have a second screen where you've got your bookwork and your first screen's got your banking, you will save 20%. Now, at the end of the year, that 20% is massive. If you have a third screen, that might only save you 5%. The fourth screen might save you 2%, the fifth and the sixth might save you 1%. All of a sudden, you've saved 30%. Now, that means I can be 30% more efficient at the end of the year. And so, which means I can either take more time off, which I don't normally do, but it's the opposite with clerics. My type of character is I find other things to do in that 30%. But at the end of the day, if you're doing 2,000 hours and you've saved 600 hours by having 6 screens, that's a lot of time. So yeah, I do implement it, but what I suggest to people is, whatever these famous business people, famous, developers, inventors, and all that sort of stuff, find what suits you and take it and do it. And the hardest part is actually doing it, okay? It's great that you've got these ideas and bits and pieces, you've got to get off your ass and actually do them. Okay, so that's why, as I said, I like to run 6 screens because I've got, something I can learn on one of them while I'm doing other bits and pieces. And it doesn't matter if you listen to that program about marketing 6 times. You might only get 10-20% each time that you're listening because you're focusing on your other work. But I tell you what, at the end of the week, when you've listened to that 6 or 7 times repeatedly, you're pretty much, it's as good as watching it just by itself.